My name is Emma Morgan. The last Thanksgiving was held in my father's house, a sprawling log cabin in the mountains that always smelled like pine and wood smoke. The whole family was there, laughing around the heavy oak table, passing platters of food, acting like everything was perfect. I waited until my stepmother, Jennifer, had just taken a bite of stuffing. Then I smiled, a tight, brittle thing, and asked, "So, did the hospital send Kevin's surgery appointment letter yet?" My father and Jennifer looked at each other and actually chuckled. "Oh, yeah, it came last week," Dad said, all casual, carving another slice of turkey. "But we used that money for Kevin's 27th birthday party. You know, he only turns 27 once." The entire table just kept smiling, like he just commented on the weather. I set my fork down very, very slowly. I looked them each in the eye, my voice as calm and level as a frozen lake. "So, I guess you still don't know who actually needed that money." The room went dead silent. The color drained from my father's face. Jennifer froze, a forkful of gravy halfway to her mouth. My brother, Kevin, just stared down at his plate, suddenly fascinated by a green bean. That one sentence turned Thanksgiving dinner into a morgue in 3 seconds flat. If you've ever said something at a family gathering that made everyone choke on their mashed potatoes, drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And stick around, because what happened to them after the silence broke, you're going to want to see this. Their faces went ghost white and nobody said another word for the rest of the night. Morning light sliced through the dusty blinds, but I hadn't moved from the living room couch. My phone was still clutched in my hand, the screen cracked from when I dropped it hours ago. I unlocked it, my thumb shaking, and opened the banking app one last time, praying I had imagined it. But there it was. Zero. $356,000, gone. I'd spent the last 10 years of my life keeping this family afloat. It was like being a frog in a pot of slowly warming water. You don't notice you're being boiled alive until it's too late. It started small. Covering Kevin's tuition at the local college. Then it was the down payment on his car when he turned 21. Then the security deposit on a ridiculous downtown apartment so he could network with other influencers. It was the endless stream of supplemental credit cards I paid off, the ones he handed out to his friends like party favors. I never said no. Not once. Because I was conditioned to be the fixer. 11 months earlier, Kevin had crashed on my couch after a night out. As he slept, snoring like a chainsaw, I noticed how swollen his knuckles were. He'd been complaining about joint pain for months, always brushing it off as old sports injuries. But something in my gut told me it was worse. While he was passed out, I carefully drew 2 vials of blood with a sterile kit I'd ordered. I drove them to the lab myself the next morning. 2 days later, my friend Dr. Mark Vale, the best rheumatologist in the state, called me directly. "Emma, it's aggressive rheumatoid arthritis. He's in the early stages. If he starts biologic therapy within the next 8 months, we have a 90% chance of preventing permanent damage. After that window closes, it's a lifetime of deformity and pain management." I didn't tell anyone. Kevin would have panicked. My father would have dismissed it. Jennifer would have turned it into a drama for attention. So I did what I always did. I fixed it quietly. I set up a revocable living trust, with me as the sole trustee and Kevin as the beneficiary for medical expenses only. I poured every bonus, every tax refund, every skipped vacation into that account. $356,000, the exact amount the hospital required up front for the first year of treatment. I added a single emergency clause, just in case. Either parent could request a disbursement with my verbal and email confirmation. I never, ever thought they would use it. They did. Last week, while I was stuck in a project meeting in another state, Jennifer called my private banker. She used the exact words from the clause, "Kevin's in a medical crisis, Emma authorized me to handle it." Then she forwarded an email from an address that looked almost identical to mine, giving permission. The banker saw the clause, saw the fake email, heard a mother's fake tears on the phone, and released the entire amount in a single transfer. Where did it go? Kevin's 27th birthday party. A private mountain lodge rented for the weekend. An indie band flown in from out of state. Custom fireworks exploding over the Blue Ridge Mountains. 300 guests, half of them social media influencers who needed content for their feeds. An open bar, catered by the hottest chef in the city. Ice sculptures. The works. I pulled up Kevin's Instagram account. The stories were still live. There he was, crowd surfing over a sea of hands. There he was, popping a bottle of champagne on a balcony at sunrise. There he was, grinning in front of a giant neon sign that read, 27 and unstoppable. He had no idea the money lighting up his perfect night was the same money meant to keep him from spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. I sat there on the couch until the sun was high in the sky, my phone dead in my lap. My grief was gone. In its place was something cold and hard and clear. I walked to my home office and logged into my online banking portal. Kevin's credit cards, all 6 of them, cancelled. The automatic payment for his sports car, stopped. The monthly transfer for his downtown apartment rent, deleted. I went through every financial tie that bound me to them and I severed them, one by one, with a click of a mouse. The whole process took less than 15 minutes. Then I sat back and waited. The doorbell rang at 2 in the morning, a frantic, angry buzzing that echoed through the silent house. I knew exactly who it was. I opened the door to find all 3 of them on my porch, my father, Jennifer, and Kevin, reeking of cheap bar whiskey and pure rage. Jennifer shoved past me first, clutching a thick stack of credit card statements like a weapon. "You cut them off," she hissed, slapping the papers down on my coffee table. "You cut off every single one of his cards. His American Express was declined everywhere. He couldn't even buy gas yesterday." Dad stormed in right behind her, his face flushed. The car payment bounced. The repo company already left a notice on the windshield. "They're coming to get it in 48 hours, Emma." 48 hours. Kevin lingered in the doorway, his hoodie pulled low over his bloodshot eyes. He looked smaller, deflated. "Sis, the leasing office taped a 10-day eviction notice on my door this morning. My roommates are freaking out. I'm about to be homeless." I closed the door slowly and leaned back against it. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel a single tremor of fear or guilt. Jennifer's voice climbed higher, cracking with indignation. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? His friends are blowing up his phone asking why his cards are dead. He's a 27-year-old influencer, not some broke college kid." My father pointed a trembling finger at my chest. "You don't get to just pull the plug whenever you feel like it. This family runs on what you provide. That has always been the deal. You stop, we all stop." Kevin finally shuffled inside, rubbing the back of his neck with a nervous energy. "Come on, Em. Just turn it all back on. I'll pay you back. My next brand deal is huge, it should hit in a couple weeks, tops." I looked at each of their faces, one by one. 10 years of their excuses, their guilt trips, their 3 a.m. emergency money requests flashed through my mind. The thousands I'd wired to keep up appearances. The vacations I'd canceled to cover their mistakes. The holidays I'd worked double shifts to fund. I took a slow, deep breath. No, the word hung in the air like a gunshot. Jennifer's mouth fell open. "What did you just say?" I said no, I repeated, my voice steady. "Not another dime. Not another payment. Not another single excuse." Dad's face turned a dark shade of purple. "You don't get to decide that. You have been bankrolling this family since you were 24 years old. That is your role. You don't just get to walk away from your role." "My role?" I let out a short, sharp laugh. "I'm not an ATM with a pulse." Kevin tried the puppy dog eyes that had always worked on me when we were kids. "Sis, please. I have appearances lined up. Sponsors. If I show up looking like I'm broke, my entire career is over." Jennifer snatched the papers again, fanning them out like a losing hand of cards. "Look at these balances. Look at what you've done. You want to see your little brother out on the street? I didn't even glance at the stack. He's 27. He has a college degree he never uses, a car he can't afford, and an apartment he doesn't pay for. That is not my mess to clean up anymore. My father took a step closer, his voice dropping to that terrifyingly calm tone he always used right before he exploded. You think this ends here? You think we're just going to let you destroy everything we've built? Jennifer's eyes narrowed to slits. You have 24 hours to reverse every single cutoff. The cards, the car note, the rent. All of it. Or you are going to find out exactly how far we are willing to go to protect this family. Kevin just stood there, staring at the floor, waiting for me to break like I always did. I walked past all three of them, opened my front door wide, and stood in the opening. Your 24 hours starts now, I said. Get out. A thick manila envelope was sitting on my doorstep when I got home from work 2 days later. No stamp, no return address, just my name typed in bold letters. I carried it inside, slid my finger under the flap, and felt the floor tilt beneath me. It was a petition. A petition for the appointment of a guardian of the estate and person for Emma Morgan, filed by Michael and Jennifer Morgan, petitioners. The cover letter from their attorney was only 4 paragraphs, but each one felt like a physical blow. Paragraph 1 claimed I had abruptly and without justification ceased all financial support to my family. Paragraph 2 stated I had been exhibiting signs of severe mental instability, including paranoid isolation and irrational hostility. Paragraph 3 alleged I posed an imminent risk of dissipating my own substantial estate and was a danger to myself. The final paragraph was the hook. If I signed the enclosed voluntary guardianship agreement immediately, they would limit the proceedings to financial oversight only. If I refused, they would seek full guardianship of my person and estate, including the right to have me placed under psychiatric evaluation and control all of my medical decisions. Attached was the pre-filled agreement. My signature line already had a little blue sticker with an arrow pointing to it. I read the entire packet 3 times, my hands shaking harder with every page. They had statements from neighbors I barely knew, saying I rarely left the house anymore. They had a printout of my credit report showing I'd paid off every joint account and removed them as authorized users, presented as proof of my financial instability. They had screenshots of texts I'd sent Kevin, telling him it was time to get a job. They even had a note from Jennifer's therapist, a person I had never met, claiming she feared for my safety because I had become cold and unreachable. They had attached a draft emergency order, asking a judge to freeze every single bank account in my name until a hearing could be scheduled. I called the only person I knew who wouldn't panic, Claire Donovan, the sharp corporate lawyer I'd used for a work contract years ago. She picked up on the second ring. Emma, slow down. Email me everything. Right now. 20 minutes later, she called back, her voice all business. This is a guardianship trap, she said. State law allows family members to petition for guardianship if they can show incompetence or imminent harm. It's a loophole abusers use to seize total control. The voluntary agreement is a trick. If you sign it, you hand them your money and your freedom on a silver platter. If you fight it, they'll push for an emergency hearing and ask the court to appoint an interim guardian on the spot. I've seen it happen. How strong is their case? I asked, my voice thin. Right now? It's weak. It's garbage. But judges grant these interim orders all the time on flimsy evidence, especially if the petitioners put on a good show and cry in court. We need to move, and we need to move fast. She told me to gather every bank record, every text message, every single piece of paper that proved I was perfectly competent and that they were the ones who had drained a medical trust for a party. That night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by a mountain of paper, scanning documents until the sun came up. Every time I thought about just signing the papers to make it all stop, I pictured Kevin popping another bottle of champagne he didn't pay for, and the wave of nausea passed. By morning, I had a plan. I wasn't signing anything. I wasn't begging for their forgiveness. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let them lock me up just to keep their gravy train running. I sealed my own envelope, much thicker than theirs, addressed it to their lawyer, and dropped it in the outgoing mail. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 4 words on it. "See you in court." The attacks came from 2 directions at once. The first was a certified letter taped to my front door. It was from my employer's human resources department. My stomach dropped before I even tore it open. It was a notice of an immediate internal investigation. An anonymous ethics complaint had been filed against me, alleging erratic behavior, financial impropriety, and mental instability that posed a risk to the company. I was being placed on paid administrative leave, effective immediately, pending the outcome of the investigation. My access to company systems was revoked. My keycard was deactivated. I was ordered not to contact any colleagues. My career, the one thing that was entirely mine, the thing I had built from nothing, was suddenly hanging by a thread. The second attack arrived the very next day. It was an email from my health insurance carrier. The subject line read, "Urgent, fraud investigation and suspension of coverage." My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened it. Attached was an itemized list of claims filed under my policy within the last 45 days, totaling over $94,000. Emergency psychiatric holds at the local hospital. Inpatient detox at a rehab facility 2 counties over. Suicide watch admissions. All of them listed me as the patient. All of them were complete with forged electronic signatures that looked terrifyingly like mine. I had never set foot in any of those places. I called the insurance carrier's fraud department, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. After nearly an hour on hold, a supervisor finally came on the line. Her voice was flat and bureaucratic. "Ma'am, these claims were all submitted through the official provider portal using your member ID, your date of birth, and a digital attestation. We are required by federal law to suspend coverage pending a full investigation." I asked for the IP addresses where the claims were submitted from. She read them off, one by one. Every single one traced back to the public library 2 blocks from my parents' house. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. This wasn't just a family dispute, it was felony insurance fraud. It was a coordinated assault designed to break me, to strip me of my job, my health insurance, my entire support system, until I had no choice but to surrender. Overwhelmed and feeling attacked from all sides, I finally broke down and called my best friend, Sarah. She was an nurse, someone who saw the worst of humanity every single day and never flinched. I told her everything, the words spilling out in a torrent of fear and exhaustion. I told her about the guardianship petition, the lies, the complaint at work, the fake insurance claims. When I was done, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. I thought maybe she didn't believe me, that it was all too insane. Then her voice came through, clear and steady as a rock. "Emma, listen to me," she said. "This is what abusers do. When they lose control, they try to burn your entire world to the ground so you have to crawl back to them for warmth. They are not doing this because you are crazy. They are doing this because you are sane and you said no. Do not let them convince you otherwise." Her words were like a splash of cold water. She didn't question me. She didn't doubt me. She validated everything I was feeling, anchoring me back to reality when I was starting to drift. We talked for another hour, and by the time we hung up, the panic had subsided. My resolve had hardened from fear into steel. They had declared all-out war. Fine. I was ready to fight back. The final betrayal came during legal discovery. My lawyer, Claire, had subpoenaed their phone records. She called me into her office and slid a printed transcript of text messages across the conference table. They were between my stepmother and my brother, Kevin, from the week they stole the money. Jennifer's text read, "Banker is asking for an email confirmation from E. I created the fake address, but you need to send the message. Make it sound urgent. Medical crisis." Kevin's reply came 2 minutes later, "Done. He'll never know. Did you get the invoice for the fireworks yet?" Reading it felt like a punch to the gut. All this time, I had held onto a tiny sliver of hope that Kevin was just an ignorant pawn in their scheme. But he wasn't. He was a willing accomplice. He knew. He helped them. That knowledge severed the very last thread of affection I had for him. The day of the hearing, the sky opened up and dumped rain on the city. The courtroom was small and smelled like old paper and disinfectant. My father and Jennifer sat at the petitioner's table, dressed in somber clothes I'd never seen before, trying to look like concerned parents. Their lawyer, a man named Langford, kept adjusting his tie like it was choking him. Kevin sat in the gallery right behind them, hoodie up, scrolling on his phone, acting like he was bored at the DMV. The clerk of Superior Court, the judge in these cases, was a woman named Margaret Ellison. She was younger than I expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Langford stood first, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "Your Honor, this is a tragic but necessary proceeding. We are here to protect our daughter from a severe and rapid mental decline." Claire got to her feet, her voice crisp and clear. "Your Honor, this is a calculated and fraudulent attempt to seize my client's assets through the weaponization of the guardianship process. We move for immediate dismissal and criminal referral." Judge Ellison's gaze flickered from the mountain of paperwork to me, then back to the lawyers. "Call your first witness, Ms. Donovan." Claire gave a small, lethal smile. The respondent calls Dr. Mark Vale to the stand. The side door to the courtroom opened, and everything they had built began to burn. Dr. Vale walked in, took the oath, and sat in the witness box. Claire began gently. "Dr. Vale, can you please state your professional relationship to Kevin Morgan?" "I am his diagnosing rheumatologist," he said, his voice resonating through the quiet room. 11 months ago, I confirmed a diagnosis of aggressive, early-onset rheumatoid arthritis. I informed his sister, Emma Morgan, that without immediate biologic therapy, the prognosis was near certain permanent joint destruction. A gasp went through the gallery. My stepmother half rose from her chair. "Objection. Medical privacy." Langford sputtered. "Overruled," the judge snapped. "Continue, doctor." Dr. Vale opened a folder. Ms. Morgan created a revocable living trust containing $356,000, designated exclusively for her brother's medical care. She intended to fund the entire protocol herself without informing her parents, to spare them the worry. Claire projected the bank records onto the large screen behind the judge. The fraudulent withdrawal request. The fake email confirmation sent by Kevin. The invoices from the party, the mountain lodge rental, the band, the caterer, the fireworks display. My father's face turned the color of ash. Jennifer was clutching the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Dr. Vale kept going, his tone clinical and devastating. The optimal treatment window for Mr. Morgan closed 4 months ago. He now faces a future of lifelong deformity and chronic, opioid-level pain. That money was his only realistic chance at a normal life. From the gallery, Kevin finally looked up from his phone, yanking out his earbuds. "What the hell are you talking about?" Dr. Vale turned and looked directly at him. "Your parents used the money meant for your medical treatment to throw you a birthday party. You needed that money to be able to walk without pain for the rest of your life." Kevin's mouth opened and closed. He turned to Jennifer. "Mom?" She wouldn't meet his eyes. Claire walked to the judge's bench and placed a thick stack of documents in front of her. First, the sworn affidavits from the family's 11 paid witnesses. Then, our counter-affidavits from 3 of those same witnesses, who had recanted their entire stories the second my lawyer's investigator showed up at their doors. They admitted they were paid $500 each to sign whatever was put in front of them. Langford jumped to his feet, trying to object, but Judge Ellison waved him into silence. She spent what felt like an eternity reading through the documents, her expression hardening with every page she turned. The only sound in the room was the rain hammering against the tall windows and the rustle of paper. Finally, she looked up, her eyes like chips of ice, and stared directly at my father and Jennifer. After a thorough review of the evidence presented, she began, her voice ringing with cold authority, "This court finds no credible basis whatsoever for a finding of incompetence against the respondent, Emma Morgan. This petition is not just without merit, it is frivolous, filed in bad faith, and appears to be supported by coordinated perjury and blatant financial exploitation. She let the words hang in the air for a moment before delivering the final blows. She turned to my parents. Michael and Jennifer Morgan, your petition for guardianship is hereby denied with prejudice. All filing fees, court costs, and the respondent's full attorney's fees will be assessed against you personally. She banged her gavel once, a sharp crack that made them flinch. Furthermore, pursuant to state statutes regarding financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult and perjury, this entire court record is being referred to the district attorney's office for immediate criminal investigation. The gallery behind me erupted in whispers. 2 bailiffs moved to stand behind my parents' chairs. Judge Ellison stared straight at them, her face an unreadable mask. This case is closed. The marshals will escort the petitioners from the building. My father tried to stand, but his legs seemed to give out from under him. Jennifer was openly sobbing, her carefully constructed facade completely shattered. And Kevin, he just sat there, frozen, staring at the giant projected invoice for the fireworks that had cost him his future. Dr. Vale stepped down from the witness stand, gave me the smallest, most imperceptible nod, and walked out of the courtroom. I stayed in my chair long after the room had emptied, listening to the rain, letting the judge's words wash over me. Denied with prejudice. Criminal investigation. It was over. They lost. And for the first time in more than a year, I could finally breathe. Kevin's first major flare-up happened in June. By August, he couldn't hold a pen. By October, he was using a walker. His social media presence vanished overnight. At 28 years old, he qualified for disability, which paid him just over $800 a month. That was his entire income. My father and Jennifer lasted 91 days after the hearing. The court-ordered sanctions and my legal fees bankrupted them. Their house, the house I grew up in, went into foreclosure the week before Christmas. I drove by once and saw a padlock on the front door. I never answered their calls. I never replied to a single text. I put my own house on the market in January and it sold in 6 days. I used the money to pay off the last of my debts, close every account that had ever been connected to them, and buy a one-way ticket out of that town. I moved to a new city, got a new job, a new apartment, and a new phone number that no one from my old life had. I started going by my middle name, Marie, just to feel like a different person. The closing for the sale of my house was on the first warm day of March. I drove back one last time, my windows down, music blasting. The mountains looked the same, but the house didn't. The new owners had already painted the front door a cheerful teal. I walked through the empty rooms one final time, the keys cold in my hand. The living room where our family had imploded. The kitchen where I used to make grilled cheese for a little boy who looked up to me. I left the keys on the counter, locked the door behind me for good, and didn't look back. Standing on the porch, I took one last look at the mountains that had raised me. Somewhere down there, my family was living with the consequences they had created. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt finished. I got back in my car and drove east until the peaks disappeared from my rearview mirror. Here is what I know now, what I wish someone had told me when I was 24. Love is not a blank check. Family is not a lifetime subscription you are obligated to renew. The moment you make your own peace and well-being secondary to someone else's manufactured emergency, you sign away your own future. If you are out there right now, paying bills you didn't create, fixing problems for people who would watch you drown without even blinking, please listen to me. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose yourself, and that does not make you the villain. Because the people who truly love you would never, ever have asked you to set yourself on fire just to keep them warm.